How's it going, guys? Welcome to the Trades and Grades podcast. I'm your host, No Right. Alongside me is Caleb Nemi. No Camden Gongler tonight. He is not feeling the best, so sad because he's missing out on a great episode. Today we're going to be doing flaming hot takes, the boldest takes for the 2022 season. Essentially, things that you think are pretty much very on the outside of possibility, but like just enough for like maybe that's believable. And so the goal is one just to have fun with our fancy takes as we're beginning the fantasy football season tomorrow. I guess today, if you're listening to this on Thursday, with the Rams and the Bills. That's gonna be a great game. If you have Cooper Kupp or Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, Stafford, any of those guys, you're gonna be pumped because you get to play those guys on Thursday night. I don't have any of them. I don't think in any of my leagues, so that's tough. But yeah, Caleb, how you feeling about the start of the fantasy football season?
Oh, so super excited. I mean, this is what we've been building for. This is what we've been talking for about since March, since the NFL draft. Like all of a sudden, all of our work, if you're in dynasty leagues, all of a sudden, all your offseason is about to come into fruition. And if you're in redraft leagues, like we're just excited to see some good football being played on Thursday night.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy when you think about it. We started this podcast and show in April, I think. Beginning of April, we talked about it in March. I thought about making a show probably back in February and just didn't have right pieces at the time. Eventually came together. But we've been talking about Dynasty, now redraft as well, just fantasy football in general for months and months and months, basically since the season's been over. So for the first time since we've been a show, we actually get to start having fantasy football. So yeah, we get to put our money where our mouth is and see if some of the the analysis we've been going over for the last I don't know how many months is helping people who's listening to this. But before we get any further, I just want to say if you guys haven't yet, please like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've been grinding it out, and if you're listening on the podcast, please go. I think you can follow and please leave a review, a 5-star review. You can write a review as well. It mean a lot to us. We put a lot of work in the last couple months. Putting these out every single week. Last week we had 2 that went out. So we just want you guys to know, like, we're consistent. We're trying to make sure that we get out good content. And as this next, the football season goes on, we'll be coming out each week with kind of a recap and then guys who we think that you guys should pick off either off the waiver wire or who you should be trading for or giving away. So that's what we're going to be having for the next, it was 18 weeks. So, and we're also on Twitter. So if you haven't followed us on Twitter, at Trades N, the letter N, Grades. And then follow also Caleb has his own channel, which I guess you just look up Caleb Nemi on YouTube.
You find me everywhere with just my name. I think that's the most like basic way to find me. So find me on Instagram, find me on Twitter, find me on YouTube. Like appreciate all the support.
TikTok.
But yeah, TikTok too. Hey, you know what? My TikToks aren't as good as yours, Noah, but they're getting there. So Mick, if you're listening, appreciate all of your support and guidance here recently.
Has he been helping you? I didn't even ask.
You know, he gave me some tips, tricks to use with the editing thing because he's got his own little TikTok channel that is crisp with highlights.
Yeah.
So
Ziggy Prods. I think it's like at Ziggy Prods, but yeah, he said I talked to him real briefly, but he said it's really difficult to explain over the phone. He wish he could tell you in person and show you stuff, but I'm glad he's been able to help you out some. But without further ado, let's get to our first hot take of the night. Caleb, let's kick us off.
Yeah, kicking us off. I'm just going with my top quarterback that I feel like I have in a lot of leagues, but now we're looking at going into the season is going to be Trey Lance finishing as the QB3 in fantasy at the end of the season. Now, this is feeling pretty bold right now because you're like, oh my gosh, Caleb, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. Like, how do you value those guys and how are they going to fall off and how is Trey Lance going to make it? But this is where we're going with the spicy hot take. If we look last year, Trey Lance is in the same exact situation that Jalen Hurts was, a very run-first quarterback that has that mobility, that Konami code that we're looking for, and playing for an offense that is pretty good, but we don't think the team is necessarily going to be just freaking amazing. Maybe they are. Maybe the 49ers will actually overachieve and overdo their expectations. But we're already going into week 1. George Kittle is potentially going to be hurt. So it's going to be the Trey Lance show because it's him, Deebo Samuel, and Brandon Ayuk. And I'm just excited. I think he has the rushing upside where he gets you that 30 to 40 yards per game, which will be an extra 4 fantasy points on top of probably throwing somewhere around 250 to 300 yards a game. If he can get somewhere around maybe getting you a rushing touchdown every other game on top of throwing for 2 touchdowns a game. Like at the end of the season, you're going to be really surprised with the value that Trey Lance shows. And I'm excited because most of likely you drafted him in somewhere around the quarterback 9 to quarterback 12 range in your redraft drafts. Or if you're in Dynasty, you drafted him, you've been waiting for this man to start and become what everyone thought he was going to be last season. So just super excited for Trey Lance this year. And that's my bold, spicy hot take.
Yeah, I mean that's literally the whole point of the show is to have something crazy that's like just possible. And I think that is possible. If the biggest thing for me, we talked about this already with Camden, is I am worried slightly that if they are looking to win and Trey Lance isn't as a real NFL football player who they think that they need to succeed. They've already had Jimmy G take him to the NFC Championship game. They've shown that he can provide for the team. He can make it there. That's my only concern. If Trey Lance gets to play all 17 games, and then obviously some of the playoffs, which wouldn't concern fantasy football, but if he gets to play all 17 games, I think just from his rushing floor alone, he has immense upside, and he has all the weapons necessary. He has a great coach. He's got Debo, Brandon Ayuk, and Elijah Mitchell. I mean, and Kittle you talked about too, which he's had some injury issues in the past, but when they're on the field, that's a pretty we'll just say he's got a better shot at hitting his upside than poor Justin Fields does based on the amount of weapons he has around him. Even though I love Justin Fields, but yeah, I think that's possible. I mean, he might be able to hit that again. I think the biggest concern for me is if he can stay on the field without Jimmy G being there. I don't know how that's going to go over in the locker room. I know that I saw reports of Trey Lance being upset that Jimmy G was still there when they re-signed him for that deal. Which I mean, low-key, I kind of would be too. But I don't know. We'll see. Do you have any concerns really about him being overtaken by Jimmy G? I don't want to be a dead horse from last week.
No, not at all. I think the thing with Jimmy G, I think it's just great insurance for the 49ers. They what 3 first-round draft picks into Trey Lance, essentially. Like the time is now to start getting Trey Lance ready. Otherwise, you're going to turn Trey Lance into Jordan Love, and then you're going to ever wonder if that was great value. You're going to start calling him a bust without even ever seeing him. So the time to develop him is now, and so I'm not concerned at all. I think the only way Jimmy G gets in is if Trey Lance looks like freaking Peterman out there and throws 5 interceptions in a game, and or I don't know, gets injured, and then they just have to throw Jimmy G in there. So and the other thing is I don't think the trade market was there for Jimmy G. So it's like you might as well just keep him because he is a very capable quarterback.
I do think that it was kind of weird, maybe just because of the contract situation that nobody wanted him because he's on. And I don't know his whole injury, because we had surgery over the summer or in the spring, and so there's that lingering. But that the fact that the Panthers had Sam Darnold didn't want Jimmy G. Then the Browns, with their whole fiasco, didn't want Jimmy G. The Seahawks are rolling with Geno Smith, so maybe they're trying to tank a little bit, but their team's not that awful. They've had O-line. They have they have DK, and then I guess Lockett's solid. He's aging, and I don't know about their defense so much, but it's not like they're a horrible team. So they're in an odd spot, I guess. They weren't looking to contend this year, really. But I feel like there were places for Jimmy G to go, and they just didn't. I don't know. I think it's weird that they didn't get picked up. But yeah, I mean, we'll move on to I guess it's segue into a quarterback of mine that I'm gonna pick. I literally just thought about this, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go with this because I've been touting him for the last month or so for redraft, and this is what this is. But I think that this isn't maybe not the hottest hot take of all, but this is semi-hot, I guess. I will say Kirk Cousins will be a top 5 fantasy quarterback, which I think is it's kind of hot, but it's not like the craziest thing ever. Here's why. First off, I think Kirk Cousins is extremely underrated in both dynasty and redraft formats. But we look at the last couple of years, he's been very consistent, staying around the quarterback 10-11 range, and he's never had a finish better than quarterback 5, I believe, which is dating back to his time in Washington. So he's shown that he can be a top 5, but it's been a while. He's 34 years old. That was back in 2016. And so the last couple of years, he's finished 11th, 19th, 13th. So you're like, well, what has really changed in the last year? Well, it's their head coach, right? Kevin O'Connell coming over from the Rams, and the offense you saw what happened last year, where completely rejuvenated their offense. Not that it's been bad in the past, but to have Cooper Kupp go crazy as he did. Robert Woods was a top 20 wide receiver as well. He's wide receiver 18 until he had his ACL injury. Cooper Kupp obviously was wide receiver 1, and Matthew Stafford had the best year that he's ever had in fantasy, tied for his best with a quarterback 5 finish. And I think that those are very similar guys. I think Stafford and Kirk are. I might tip my hat to Stafford a little more, but I think that they're very close. And I think that Adam Thielen is somebody that's underrated as well, who has shown he can be a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. You have the number 1 wide receiver in Dynasty in Justin Jefferson. And then you have Dalvin Cook, who is a stud, and he's right on the edge of his prime, but I think he's still got a prime of the year this year. So between all of that, I think that they have the weapons necessary to get Kirk in that offense of Kevin O'Connell to throw for an insane amount. And he's a good quarterback. So I think just on the offensive volume alone, it's going to raise him to become probably top 5. I think he could even get maybe the 4 spot. But yeah, that's where I'm at with Kirk.
Bold takes. But I will say this. I will say this about Kirk Cousins. Any team that I've drafted Trey Lance, I always grab Kirk Cousins as my QB2. And I'll be honest, I think there might be a point this season, and I know I just made a huge bold take about why I'm so hype on Trey Lance. My other spicy take is I would easily see on those teams that I might be starting Kirk Cousins most of the weeks, if worst comes to worst. And so I definitely agree with everything that you just said. Justin Jefferson's about to go bonkers, so Kirk Cousins is, of course, going to have to go bonkers for Justin Jefferson to go bonkers.
Yeah, I've been trying to get Justin Jefferson in my home league because it is a start. So you get 2 running backs, 2 wide receiver, and then 2 flex, obviously quarterback and tight end as well. But like you only have 4 spots where you can play a wide receiver, and the league's not super deep, and it's only 10 team, right? So like you want the studs, you want the firepower. Like if you have good depth, I had good depth, but like at what point, what does that get you? Because it's like, okay, well, yeah, you have good depth, but like you're never going to play this guy anyway. So hence why I made the trade for Pitts last week with Camden. And so I've been trying to get Justin Jefferson, but man, it's like, will I have anything left at this point? Like even if I do get him, like, will I have anything? Will it be worth it? But I just know that he's going to go crazy. Like I would, at everybody in the league, I think he's going to be wide receiver 1. And I think he could have a year like Kupp did this past year. And I'm just like, an overpay today is underpay tomorrow, even though the underpay is like an insane amount. I just don't know if there's a number you can put on Justin Jefferson at this point. So, which just kind of sucks because I want him so bad.
Yeah, no, I definitely see where you're coming from. I would disagree with you on Justin Jefferson being the overall wide receiver 1 because I think even if Cooper Kupp progresses, he's still going to end up as the wide receiver 1, which I know hasn't happened in a long time. So it's Justin Jefferson is, of course, the most other likely candidate to take over the crown of being the wide receiver 1. But it'll be, like I said, I like that Kirk Cousins take quite a lot. My second bold take, we'll go into my second one if you're okay with that, Noah, is that Elijah Moore is going to be a top 10 wide receiver this year. I'm all over Elijah Moore. And I just tweeted about it yesterday, and a lot of people, because I traded in one of my dynasty leagues, I traded Cortland Sutton straight up for Elijah Moore. And a lot of people were, I think, taking the Sutton side. Like, Sutton has more upside than Elijah Moore. And I'm like, has no one seen all the pictures of him and his like 25 pounds of muscle that he's gained? He looks just juicy. Like, I don't even know another word to describe how he looks. Like, he looks like Saquon. Like when those Saquon pictures come out of the quads and you're just like, man, that's an athlete. Like
Saquon.
that's how Saquon. Yeah. That's how I look at Elijah Moore. And I know a lot of people are like, well, it's not going to be his year. Like whatever, like Zach Wilson is injured and he's not going to be back until week 4. Like I am not that like, I'm not worried at all that Joe Flacco is going to be the starting quarterback. Like Joe Flacco is a very capable backup. And to be completely fair, do we actually know that Zach Wilson's better than Joe Flacco? Like when Joe Flacco came in last year, I think like the points per game on a fantasy points per game basis was like 1.5 fantasy points a game, which like is like nothing. So I'm confident that Elijah Moore's still the wide receiver 1 there for the New York Jets. That I'm not worried about Garrett Wilson. I'm not worried about Braxton Berrios. I'm not worried about Corey Davis. Like the bro is going to get somewhere around 120 to 130 targets. And as long as he does something with them, granted, they might not be the same targets as what an Allen Robinson or Cooper Kupp's going to get, or maybe even our boy Justin Jefferson's going to get from Kirk Cousins. But I'm still confident that he can do something with them. So as long as he can turn that 130 target, 100 like 30 targets, somewhere around 95 to 100 receptions, you're looking at like 1,100 yards, probably somewhere around 7 or 8 touchdowns. That's all you need to be a top 10 wide receiver.
Yeah, no, that's I feel like that if Elijah Moore is on any other team, maybe not any other team, but a lot of other teams, I would be all like you said, like that he is such a probably undervalued player right now, especially in redraft. I saw that tweet and I commented, and like I was thinking about Dynasty, and I was like, okay, well, Sutton this year I think probably has top 12 upside with Russ. I think that's gonna be who Russ is gonna be going to mostly. He's a bigger body like DK. You see what he can do with DK. He might not be the exact same athlete, but he's a similar, body type. I think that could be his go-to. And so for the next 2 to 3 years at least, because signed a contract, probably 3 or 4, he's gonna be, I think, close in the range of like 12 to 18. Wide receiver 12 to 18, maybe he breaks the top 10. Whereas Elijah Moore, he's just so screwed with the situation. That said, we saw what happened this past summer and offseason with like AJ Brown getting traded in the draft to the Eagles. Like you just have no idea what's going to happen, where people are going to go. So I don't want to be like situational. You want to buy talent. It seemed like right now Sutton was the way to go, but like I completely understand the Elijah Moore. I just wish, like, I honestly would feel better if if they said Joe Flacco's a starting quarterback. I'm being serious. I don't, Zach Wilson, I just don't think is good, really. I want him to be good because I want the Jets offense to be good. But I mean, I wish that they could go out and like get Jimmy G and it makes sense for them. I don't think it probably does a ton because they have Wilson there, so it sucks. But if they, I don't know at what point they're going to get a new quarterback. Hopefully Zach Wilson can shine. But I feel like Jimmy G there would boost all that offense like an insane amount. He's not even like a star. Like he's just,
He's just a guy that gets you the ball right where you need it to be.
And yeah, so for my Garrett Wilson shares, I think Garrett Wilson's going to have a poo-poo year, and then everyone's be like, oh, what the heck? And then you can get him for cheap next summer.
See, and that's my thing right now. I wish I would have thought this through because there was a lot of leagues that I drafted Garrett Wilson as my wide receiver 1. And yep. I just to diversify from like Drake London. And I regret that because I feel like Drake London's going to hold his value and Garrett Wilson isn't. Even though I think give it in 3 years, I think Garrett Wilson's going to be worth more than Drake London. I just think this next year is just going to be so bad for Garrett Wilson's value. But that's right. I dissent. Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. And I feel similarly. I had a league where I had the 101, the 102, and the 107. In my home league, I had the 101, the 102, the 105, and I made a bunch of trades. But eventually, I got to the 103 somehow, and Kenneth Walker had been taken. I took Breece Hall with the first pick in both those leagues. And at the 103, I took Garrett Wilson over all the other wide receivers. But then in my other league where I had the second pick, I took Drake London because I was like, I got to diversify here. Even though I love Garrett Wilson, I just got to make sure I don't have all my eggs in the same boat. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that if Elijah Moore was on, like I said, a lot of other teams, he would be a lot more, valuable / reliable. I don't know what the offense is going to look like this year. A new quarterback would be fantastic for me because I have Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall on one of my teams, and I'd be loving it. So we'll see. But no, I mean, he has a talent. It's a hot take just because I think the situation, but he certainly has a talent to do so. Yeah,
it's spicy. So what's your next spicy hot take?
All right, so I'll go on to my first wide receiver, as you did. I'm going to go with Michael Pittman is a top 3 wide receiver this year. Yep, that's right. Top 3 wide receiver. It's spicy. But here's the deal. Michael Pittman last year, he had just under 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns. So, like, pretty solid season. His wide receiver, like 17. And he played a lot of the season. So points per game, he's probably slipping down because of how many games he played. But I think even last year, where he had nobody else to compete with. He's going to have Alec Pierce this year to compete with a little bit more. Maybe Paris Campbell stays on the field if he can. But other than that, it's not like he's had any extra, crazy wide receivers that's like added to the team. It's not like they got a Mike Williams or something in free agency or Calvin Ridley before he got the suspension. Think about maybe getting traded over there. But when I look at Michael Pittman's year last year, I feel like he was not used as well as he perhaps could have been because of who his quarterback. Now, I think Carson Wentz is underrated in his ADP right now, but as an NFL quarterback last year, and I was listening to the Dynasty Nerds podcast, the Colts were at the bottom of the league in red zone targets, red zone throws to wide receivers and tight ends and whatnot. Because one, they have Jonathan Taylor, right? So that's not changing this year. But two, they were terrified of letting Carson Wentz throw the ball in the red zone. Now they have Matt Ryan, who in Atlanta was at the top of the league in red zone throws. So you go from a guy who's very tactical, he knows what he's doing, doesn't make very many mistakes, and Matt Ryan, he now has a better offensive line than he had in Atlanta, which is huge for him at his age. And you mix him with Michael Pittman, who's a big body. You get him in the red zone. Even last year, he finished 14th in red zone targets with 17. He caught 8 of them. But if he had bottom of the league red zone targets and he was still 14th, imagine what they can do with someone who can actually throw the ball and they actually trust in him in the red zone. That's going to be an exponential. I know we can't exactly estimate touchdowns, and I'm not going to do that, but he's going to have a lot more targets in the red zone for him to get those touchdowns. Outside of that, he was just good all the way around. He's on the field. He's number 3rd in route participation, so he's on the field literally all the time. And he was 7th in the league yards per team pass attempt. So as much as they're throwing the ball, he is catching as a 2.08 yards per team pass. So he's very efficient. I was trying to see what else I had down here, but overall, I feel like if he gets in this route wins. So looking at his all the wide receivers in the NFL, he ranked 3rd in total route wins. So he can win. He's a very tactical runner. He's got really good route running. And now you have Matt Ryan. And then you increase what he has in the red zone. And all those 3 things, I think, is just going to be a better offense all the way around. And maybe, just maybe, wide receiver 3.
I don't know, man. I love me Michael Pittman, but the moment that he started going from being a middle 4th round pick to now he's going like in the beginning of the 3rd round, just because all of this hype, like I kind of fell off him, not because I don't think he's a talented wide receiver, or that the situation is great, or that Matt Ryan loves the target his wide receiver 1. Like all of those are true. It's just I don't see him being like I think the top 3 is a little bit high. If he would have said top 5, I think that would have still been tough, but I could have seen him sliding in. I'm banking on Michael Pittman being a top 15 receiver this year, but I think he's going to finish somewhere around wide receiver 13 or 14. Is where I would guess he finishes.
Yeah, I was gonna say top 5, but I didn't think it was spicy enough, so I went.
Oh,
top 3.
you just added the extra sizzle. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
I was like, well, I mean, top 5 is like, I think that's in the realm of possibility, but top 3, it's like literally almost impossible for him. So, but like we saw what Cooper Kupp did, no one would ever guess that. So, I guess we'll see. I don't know, but yeah.
So for my next spicy take, do you want me to do a running back or do you want me to do a receiver? Because I got 2 options here, and I don't know which one to do. So you decide for me.
Okay, I'd like to hear running back.
Okay, maybe you know what, I wrote it down and it's not spicy enough, so I'm just adding a sizzle. I know. Mine was like a safe sizzle, and it just we're going full fajita right now is what we're gonna do.
So then when we get this right, you look like an absolute genius.
I look like an absolute genius, or if I don't get it right, then everyone forget that I said whatever I just said here. Travis Etienne is going to finish as a top 5 fantasy running back this season. A lot to be said about Travis Etienne, about the fact that all these reports are coming out. James Robinson's going to be fully ready to go by week 1. Like, cool. I don't even care about James Robinson, because if you were scared about James Robinson last offseason when Travis Etienne got the 1st round draft capital, then why are we scared for him now after an Achilles injury? Like, that's all I have to say about that. And the other fact of the matter is, cool, give James Robinson some touches because Travis Etienne is going to be out there all 3 downs. He's going to be doing the receiving work. He's going to be sliding over into the quote unquote what the role should have been for Laviska Shenault. Gosh, they didn't use him right, but Travis Etienne will be sliding over there in a Deebo Samuel role where he'll be able to do those short intermediate routes. On top of the fact that he's probably going to get somewhere around, I would imagine he's somewhere between 15 to 25 touches a game, and that, based on the talent profile that we have for him, that he is that Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Swift light version. If the Jags actually have a good offense this year, which, like I said, this is spicy because I do not believe they are going to have a good offense, I could see that they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. And who are they going to throw the ball to? Travis Etienne. If he ends the year, I could see him ending the year somewhere around that 85 catch mark, which I know is super high because Najee Harris last year had 75 receptions, was like, I think he was like maybe the 4th highest receiving running back last season. That like played a predominant role in his fantasy football value. But no, Travis Etienne, if all things go right for him this season, well, I think if all things go right for him, but all things go wrong for the Jags, I think he's in to have a great fantasy football season.
Yeah, I mean, they get into he's predominantly going to be pass catching back, right? So even if they get down, they'll be if they need to throw checkdowns, that's who's going to be throwing checkdowns to, and he's teammates in college with Trevor Lawrence, obviously, so that is very helpful. I can see it happening just because of his PPR upside, right? He's going to be catching a crap ton of passes, hopefully. I watched the preseason, all of his passes, and they did throw it to Christian Kirk a lot. So that's kind of like a guy that I'm keeping my eye on, which makes me feel disgusting. I don't know why. I just really don't like Christian Kirk there.
Neither. I do not like Christian Kirk. I just talked about that actually today. So you don't like Christian Kirk either? I'm glad we're discussing this.
No, yeah. The thing is, it's more of like a gut feeling than like statistical. Like I just don't. He's just not a sexy pick. Like it's just, it's Christian Kirk. It's the Jaguars. Or is he, even if he's a number 1 there, how good is that even going to be? Like, okay, maybe he's a wide receiver 25, right? And I guess at that point, with where his cost is at, maybe the juice is worth a squeeze. But to me, it's not like he's got this this upside where you're like, oh, well, he could be like a wide receiver 15 or something. And I just don't really see that there. That would blow my mind if it did. And so, yeah, no, I feel kind of gross about Christian Kirk. But, sorry.
No, not that now that we've gotten on this tangent. The only thing, this will be my final thing. I know he's not a spicy take on Christian Kirk. Neither of us are making any spicy takes on Christian Kirk, besides the fact that he was not successful as a wide receiver 2 in a loaded Arizona Cardinals offense when he was playing one-on-one most of the time. Now he goes to a Jags offense where he's going to have to be the man. He ain't going to be the man. So don't worry at all about Christian Kirk. Actually, my spicy take, Christian Kirk finishes the season outside the top 40 wide receivers.
Dang. Well, I mean, that just would spell terribly for the Jaguars, or he gets injured like right away or something, because that's their main guy. And but yeah, I wish I had a running back. I was gonna think about getting a running back, but I was like, DeAndre Swift, running back 1, like that's too easy. I can't say that. That's a freebie.
You've been saying that all off season.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's a freebie. But yeah, so I also, before I did the Kirk Cousins one, another freebie. We're just throwing free ones out. Adam Thielen top 10. Just putting that out there. I could go into why, but like just trust me on that.
It's your same thing with your love for Kirk Cousins. They go hand in hand.
Yep, pretty much. That's why I was like, yeah. So once I did Kirk Cousins, I felt like I couldn't do 2 Vikings. So I will do my third and final one, which is that Chris Olave and Michael Thomas are both going to be top 24 wide receivers this year. Insert sizzling noise. So I think that, I mean, first off, Michael Thomas is Michael Thomas if he's healthy, which is a big if, and I get that. He hasn't played his football in 2 years, and it's hard to trust him at this point, which is why this is kind of a hot take. But if he does stay healthy and he's on the field, he is going to ball out. Jameis Winston back in 2019 with the Bucs, they had a full season. He was able to support wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 4 in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans in points per game. So we know he can do it if he gets in the right offense, if coach staff trusts him. And so he's had a full off season, come back from that injury. Hopefully he's ready. But I think Chris Olave even insert smaller spicy take, could be the best rookie wide receiver this year, and I might score the most points, to be honest, because most of the other situations are kind of crappy. I think Winston's gonna throw the ball a crap ton. At least I hope so. And so because all they have left, I mean, they still only have Alvin Kamara. He's getting older. I'm not sure how much they're gonna run him in between the tackles. And so I'd like to see them just throw the ball a ton. They have Jarvis Landry there as well. But I could see in a world where they let Jameis rip the ball, and Olave, that deep threat, and then Michael Thomas slant boy all day, just cooking defenses.
Well, you know me, my Ohio State love, 2 Ohio State wide receivers, and Jameis Winston supported 2 top 10 wide receivers. Why can't he support 2 top 24? That arguably, you could argue that Michael Thomas is better than Mike Evans. I know we can't actually say that because he's been injured the last 2 years, but in his prime, Michael Thomas was better than Mike Evans. I think everyone would agree with that. And you could also argue that Chris Olave potentially might be more talented than Chris Godwin was that one season where he was the wide receiver 3. Now, I am not the man that's going to say that and do that. I have heard some arguments like that. That is a spicy hot take, but I agree with you over there. I do like that take quite a bit. And for anyone that did draft Chris Olave pretty late, I think he was going somewhere around like the 10th to 12th round. Like that would do wonders to your fantasy football team.
Yeah, I got him. I was looking over my Scott Fishbowl team because we drafted in July, and so things have changed up quite a bit. And that's a weird league based on how they score quarterbacks. But I was looking back, and Jalen Hurts is my quarterback 1, and I was like, oh man, that's nice. Even though they put a big emphasis on accuracy, his rushing 4 is still there. But I had, looking down the list, I got Jameis Winston because the way the draft went, I had to go QB2 like late in Superflex League for the Scott Fishbowl. And I picked Jameis Winston, and then I paired him with Chris Olave. And he's on my bench right now, but I'm just like, if you want to win that thing, you pretty much just have to go all out. And so I was like, you know what? We'll just see if this works. So I'm just banking that Chris Olave and Jameis Winston are eating breakfast together right now. And they're just like, yeah, that's right. We're about to throw for like 5,000 yards, and Olave's about to have a 1,000-yard catch season and like 12 tutties or something. I don't know.
You know what's going to happen? Jarvis Landry is going to be the serial one that's been eating breakfast all the
Disgusting.
time. And you could have drafted him like 3 rounds later, but you took Chris Olave, so whatever. But no, I'm kidding. I like Chris Olave. I love the upside. I love the speed. I'm excited for him this season for sure.
All right, we'll give you. I already gave all my hot takes, so we'll
You
give
know
you
what?
one more.
I'll give one more. I'll do one more. DK Metcalf is going to finish as a top 15 wide receiver this year. Now, I don't have like anything to like be like, oh, this is so exciting. He now has Drew Lock or Geno Smith, maybe the worst. I mean, actually, it is the worst quarterback of his NFL career up to this point. So we can't like be hyping anything up. I think the thing that I like about DK Metcalf this year is not the fact that he is going to be getting these high value targets, but that he is going to be getting like a high target share. Last year he did have he played 797 snaps and he had a target share of 27.2%, which a 27% target share is like really good. And I know he didn't produce maybe to the level that he did the season before. So like a lot of people are like, just like, oh crap, like DK Metcalf's like touchdown or bust. But the thing is, the Seahawks are going to be so freaking bad on defense. They are going to be playing from behind every stinking game. And now I know they love to run the ball, but if you're down by 14, 21 points, like you're not just handing the ball off to Rashard Penny because your fans are going to start to boo you, and it's not going to work like that. And their defense isn't good enough for them to, I think, run the same amount. So hot take, Rashard Penny and Kenneth Walker are probably not going to be of the value that you're expecting them to be in the drafts. I know, even though you got them pretty late, you got them like in the 7th and 8th round, but DK Metcalf, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. So I would not be surprised if DK Metcalf gets 140 targets, which let me double check how many targets he had last season. Give me 1 second, Noah, as I'm figuring this out.
129. He's had 129 the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, so I think he gets up. How many did I say? Did I say 140? No, I forget what I said. Okay, yeah, I think he gets
like 140.
Yeah, which I think would be enough for him to up that production just slightly. And granted, of course, those targets aren't going to be the same quality, but maybe what if even those targets get up to 145, 150? So I don't know. I know you probably drafted DK Metcalf as your wide receiver 3 in the 5th or 6th round. People were saying he's talent, but he's in a terrible situation. But that's what we're banking on. Sometimes talent actually outplays the situation. So that's what I am banking on here this season with DK Metcalf in my spicy hot take.
Yeah, I think that So I have DK in one of my redraft leagues as like, let's see, I have Keenan Allen. I think I have, oh crap, I don't remember who my wide receivers are. He's like wide receiver 4. I do have Adam Thielen on that team as well. Yeah, Deontay Johnson, Waddle, Allen, Metcalf, Thielen. So it's like I'm not starting right now. I just want to see what's going to happen. But if we're looking at last year, he wins against man. So he was finished target rate against man was third in the NFL. Fantasy points per target versus man is number 5. And when you look at where he dominates is those deep targets, right? Supposedly he's getting all these deep throws, like whatever, and everyone's worried. Well, now that Russell Wilson's there, he was such a good like deep ball thrower. Now you have Drew Lock or Geno Smith, but he was ranked 3rd in the NFL in deep targets with 30, but he was ranked 1st in the NFL for unrealized air yards. So total air yards minus actual receiving yards. So he's getting thrown the ball all the time, but he didn't actualize, like he didn't really see them in receptions. It's not like he was dominating all over like deep down the field. While they threw the ball to him a lot down the field, that didn't necessarily mean he's had the opportunity to catch them, or maybe he wasn't catching them on him, but it wasn't like Russell Wilson and him were just like some unstoppable duo. Russell Wilson wasn't perfect, and the finger thing really set him back. He tried to come back way too fast from that, in my opinion. But it's not like it's some sort of, oh no, the sky is falling. He's only this guy that they can throw deep to, and he scores touchdowns, and he's big, and he can't separate, but he really can't separate all that well. But he's given such a big cushion that didn't even matter. And so when he has so many unrealized air yards from last year, and he still finished on a points per game basis as, let's see, wide receiver 20, 14.4. If they can tighten that up, they're going to run a different, they can't run the same offense as they did. They're not going to be throwing deep bombs with Geno and whatnot. But going back to last year, I think it was like 3 games or so where Geno was a quarterback, DK was about 17 points per game. I believe actually maybe Geno played more than that. Might have been 5 games. He played 3 and like a half last year when Russell got hurt. So week 6, 7, and 8 was when Wilson got hurt. So week 6, 7, and 8 is when he started. DK in those weeks 11.8, 17.6, 22.3. And so I'm not particularly worried. That's such a small sample size. I understand that, but I think he's being hated too much. So top 15, totally possible for me.
I should have said top 10, make it a little bit more spicy.
Should have,
but you know what? I said top 15. I was scared. I thought I was gonna say top 20 because I thought that was bold, but then I moved it up to top 15. But maybe I should have said top 12, like a nice median goalpost to set.
Yeah, no, I'd say probably top 12. I think that's probably his ceiling's probably 10th, right? I think wide receiver 10 is probably a ceiling. His floor is probably, in my opinion, wide receiver 20. I'd say 24. I don't think it's gonna be as big of a deal as people are making it to be. So I think he'll be fine. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed those super spicy takes. If we hit on any of them, you'll be sure to know about it. If we don't, you'll never remember this episode. So, but yeah, we appreciate you guys listening. Again, make sure you like this video. If you haven't, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, follow Caleb on all of his things on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all the things. Same with me. It's the same handle for everything. Noah R. Wright. Don't forget the R. Happens a lot. And you'll see one of my tweets blow up every so often. For some reason, they've been going crazy. They had the Kyle Pitts tweet. They had like almost 200 likes, and then I just had this tweet about crap. What did I even just tweet about? Oh, I did the first week of
the running backs for the 23 class.
Yeah, and I just looked, and then I woke up this morning, I had like 275 likes, which to most people probably not that much, but for me, little old me, I was like, holy crap! Like, but at any rate,
you woke up doing the gritty. That's what happened.
I did. I was like, oh my gosh, I got like 50 followers or something. I was like, that's right. Now you get to see my nonsense. But for real, follow me on Twitter, and you might see a good tweet every so often. And same with Caleb. His tweets are usually a lot better because they're like, hey, come look at my live draft. And I'm just like, I'm not giving you any live drafts. So sorry. I'm gonna tweet nonsense. Um, but, but anyway, appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next week.